Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast, Web Stories with Sachin, where we talk to some of the most inspiring minds in web development to learn from their journey as junior to senior. Along with it, there will be a lot of tips and tricks and what it really takes to grow in this ever evolving field. So, if you're a junior or mid senior web developer looking to grow, this conversation is going to be full of insights for you. I'm your host, Sachin, who is a mid senior web developer, and today I'm excited to have someone who's not only a senior React developer but also a true advocate for accessibility and performance optimization. Today I have Shlok Srivastava on the show, and he's a senior React web developer having 7 years of experience. But instead of me giving too much information, I let him introduce himself properly. Shlok, welcome to the show.
Hi Sachin, thanks for having me here and
Hello.
thanks for the warm welcome. So, a little bit
Pleasure.
about myself. I am a senior software engineer and I've
Mm-hmm.
been in the tech industry for almost 7 years.
Nice.
And I
Mm-hmm.
have worked with multiple clients during my tenure, and I've worked
Mm-hmm.
on building accessible websites
Mm-hmm.
and some performance optimizations and a lot of other things. I
Mm-hmm.
am also an open source contributor,
Mm-hmm.
so I try my best to learn from open source and contribute as much as I can
Mm-hmm.
to the existing repositories. I currently
Nice.
work at Accenture India,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always been fascinated by cloud technology, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I got certified as an AWS developer associate.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently, when AI started
Okay.
becoming mainstream, I
Mm-hmm.
began diving deep into it, not
Mm-hmm.
from a data scientist perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
more of like how I can use AI tools
Tools
to
and
optimize, or you would say make my work better, like build
mm-hmm.
better and faster apps.
Okay.
So that curiosity led me to create a simple CLI tool that I recently represented in a global conference, which is Front
Mm-hmm.
End Nation 2025,
Yes, I
and that
did
has been
attend
an
that. Mm-hmm.
oh, thanks for attending, man. And I think that has been one of the most exciting milestone in my journey. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and here we are. I'm excited to be
Mm-hmm.
here on your show. Thanks for having
Right,
me.
right. It's my pleasure. Yes, that was an interesting talk that you also gave the other day. And I guess knowing AWS and AI makes it already future web developer, which, it's a hot selling engineer title,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I think AI is more of like our assistant as of
Mm-hmm.
now, I would say. But
Right, right.
yeah, I think the faster we learn AI, and how
Yes.
to integrate it in our daily work, then I think
Mm-hmm.
we'll be a much better coder, as per the industry
Mm-hmm.
standard. So yeah.
Right. Totally agree. Cool. The show is basically split into different sections. One will be the personal journey of Shlok and his skills and growth, then tools, frameworks that he used, and the next section will be advice for junior or mid-level developers. And there will be one section called the AI shift in web development, and we'll have React specific questions and accessibility questions. That's where most of Shlok's experience are. And finally, we'll wind up with some fun, personal, and a rapid fire round. So two sections, which is going to be highlight is the AI and the advice for junior mid-level developers. So please don't miss that part at any cost. All right, Shlok, let's dive right in. How are you? Are you
I'm
excited about
feeling
the show?
I'm feeling very excited, and thank you so much for having me here, because I didn't expect it something like this. But when we connected after the conference and
Mm-hmm.
you gave me the opportunity to come to your show, I think it's a big thing for me. And my
Yes.
agenda is always that I learn from someone and I tell them what I know. So it's a mutual knowledge sharing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we'll
Okay.
definitely learn from each other. Yeah.
That's such a humble thought. Right, and even I am honored to have you on the show.
Thank
So
you so much.
let's see, like, let's explore the show. All right, so I'll start the first part, the personal journey and your motivation. So what sparked your interest in web development? How did it start?
Okay, so So when I started my career, right, I started it as a support engineer. So arranging
Okay.
calls between clients, devs, managers,
Mm-hmm.
and QAs, understanding
Mm-hmm.
what the problem is, and then conveying it to the developer, and
Mm-hmm.
then they will have a call, and then the client will tell their expectations. So all that, that support role is whatever you can think of. I did that, and when
Okay.
I was
Mm-hmm.
doing this support role, right,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I cannot be doing support role for the rest of my life because it's
Mm-hmm.
a challenging role. But my interest lies in development,
Mm-hmm.
so I did not directly dive into web development.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of explored everything. I
Mm-hmm.
explored front end, back end, DevOps,
Mm-hmm.
building CI/CD pipelines as well.
Mm-hmm.
QA and testing is also something that I have tried. I also
Mm-hmm.
tried to become, like a tried from a management perspective if I can be like a
Mm-hmm.
people's manager or something.
So apart
So
from your support role, you were parallelly learning these things.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like trying exploring everything as
Mm-hmm.
long as I was in support role.
Mm-hmm.
I became a lead in just 1 year of being
Mm-hmm.
in as a support engineer,
That's
which
impressive.
was thank you. But
Mm-hmm.
that was something that I learned along the way. I
Mm-hmm.
learned the skill to how to communicate clearly with the client. I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn some accents as well, like
Mm-hmm.
different people have different accents. So
Right.
making that understanding, like what
Mm-hmm.
the other person is trying to convey. So
Mm-hmm.
that role is, I think, one of the best roles that I did
Mm-hmm.
because that gave me the perspective of how client thinks and
Mm-hmm.
how developers think and
Mm-hmm.
how to bridge the gap between that. So
Okay.
many developers learn from very late that what client wanted, and they always
Mm-hmm.
blame others that the product manager did not give us the correct
Mm-hmm.
requirements, or
Mm-hmm.
the client is not that smart, he's not, he doesn't know how the code works and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like made a better understanding in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tried a lot of things, which is I also tried some tools like Trariga and Salesforce. So
Mm-hmm.
after trying all of that, when
Mm-hmm.
I finally tried a full-time front-end developer, I
Mm-hmm.
realized that this is something that I really like. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you code something and it becomes alive on the browser, so instant
Yeah.
feedback and instant joy. So I think
Same
that's
here.
what pulled me in. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Okay, good, that's good to know. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
how I became a web developer,
Okay,
after
okay.
a lot of this.
Good to know. I mean, you got also an opportunity from the beginning itself to develop as a developer and also see how it impacts the end user. So that's
Yep.
good. And was it in React right from the beginning, or do you have to work with JavaScript, HTML, CSS? How was it in the beginning?
So um, in the very beginning, this
Mm-hmm.
was it was a Java based project. It was like a tool that basically manages real estate and other details. It
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
Trariga. If you can
Mm-hmm.
Google,
Okay.
you will find it's one of
Okay.
the popular tools. So
Okay. Okay.
from I worked on that, but I did not work on the development part of it. I only worked as a
Mm-hmm.
support part. So I know the
Mm-hmm.
functionalities, like a consultant does, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to code it. So I can
Mm-hmm.
tell what's going on, but I don't know how
Okay.
it's
Okay.
coded in the
So
background.
what I understand, it's a Java-based front
Yeah,
end that was developed.
Java plus jQuery plus HTML and combination
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of things.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
My next question was, what was your first ever project as a developer, and how do you feel about it now?
Yes,
So.
so that's a very interesting story. My first project, I would say, was a customer based or customer facing web page, or you can say website, where
Mm-hmm.
customers can track their orders. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
shipment company, and
Okay.
similar to what you see in the e-commerce website site. When you order something, you can see it's shipped, it's sent, or it's the status and everything, right, and the amount and
Right.
everything. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of web page is that whole e-commerce. I was part of that
Mm-hmm.
project,
Mm-hmm.
and my first job was to create a button that
Mm-hmm.
works correctly.
Okay.
And what I did is I created the button and I forgot to add the API.
Okay.
What that button does? So I messed my first task,
So it did
horribly.
basically nothing when you
Basically
click it.
nothing. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's like
Mm-hmm.
the button should go to another page, after
Okay.
submitting the
Okay.
form,
Okay.
and that is just I just needed to design that button, which
Mm-hmm.
I did very easy, but I did not add
Mm.
the API. I don't know what I was thinking at that time,
Okay.
but it then I learned, from there I started to learn like the functionalities. So I think, yeah, that was the first thing I did.
Okay. I guess it's normal to make blunders in the initial phase.
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, I was panicked. I still remember that when I raised the PR for that button,
Uh-huh.
and my lead called me and he said that, did you forget something to add? And I was like, no, it's completely done. And then he sat with me and he told me this is how it's done. So I was very
Okay.
embarrassed, but he was supportive, so I would say it went well. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Nice story. We are going to the next section, that is skills and growth. So, what core skills helped you level up from junior to senior?
I think apart from coding skills that you
Mm-hmm.
always learn, there are two things which are very important
Mm-hmm.
for any developer, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, those two are ownership and communication.
Mm-hmm.
So ownership means basically don't, just if you are getting a task,
Mm-hmm.
to code something, some feature or some element of the web page, don't take it just like a task that you will do it, submit it, and then somebody else will figure out what's wrong. Take the
Mm-hmm.
ownership of that whole thing. I'm not saying take the ownership of whole product, but just that one part should be, you should be aware.
Mm-hmm.
So you should understand how this works, why this works, and what's the
Mm-hmm.
significant business use, and what's the
Mm-hmm.
impact that you're going to create. Obviously you're not going to get all the
Mm-hmm.
answers from the
Things
beginning,
around
but
it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but try to have that approach. I think it will make more sense to develop,
Mm-hmm.
and I think then you will be able to develop more features.
Okay, okay.
And
That's a valuable
second
skill.
thing, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and second thing is communication. So by communication I mean with everyone. So if you are
Mm-hmm.
a developer, you should have clear understanding of what the requirement is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a small doubt, ask it from your requirements owner or your product
Mm-hmm.
manager. If there is a client involved and the client says something that they want some feature to be built,
Mm-hmm.
ask them what's something that they want, what they
Mm-hmm.
don't want, and what you can build, and then have a clear understanding of what cannot be built and what can be. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that should be properly communicated by the developer rather than assuming that the other person knows.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much important to have a clear understanding, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a two-way communication. So I think everybody should follow that.
So you're saying even though things are clearly written in Jira, it's good to also communicate and see on the things that you're not sure about.
Yeah, that's very
Like,
true.
okay.
Even the documentation is completely present, I
Mm-hmm.
would say that sometimes it happens that what's written is not exactly what the person meant.
Meant, okay,
So
yeah.
like in most of the companies that use agile methodology, right,
Right.
they always have a backlog call where they explain the,
Mm-hmm.
what the requirement is. So when they are explaining, listen carefully and ask questions.
Okay.
So that way you will, save some time and
Same time.
focus more
Mm-hmm.
on development. So yeah, that's one thing that
Cool.
everybody should follow.
That totally makes sense. Then the second question, how do you approach learning something new, especially with how fast tech evolves?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Sachin. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say learn by building. I think
Okay.
that's the easiest method, I would say. Don't go with the theory for
Mm-hmm.
long. So when you are learning something, even for example React, right? So React
Mm-hmm.
is basically what, it's a front end tool to basically build websites. So when you're learning
Exactly.
React, learn the core concepts, but then code something.
Mm-hmm.
Then learn a few concepts, then code something. So learn
Okay.
by building. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you create a horrible app, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. You
Okay.
When you code more, you will understand more. I used to
Okay.
think like, if I know the concepts, I will be
Mm-hmm.
able to code very clearly, but it
Right.
doesn't work that way. I mean, you
Okay.
have to be very
Mm-hmm.
thorough when it comes to concepts as well as coding. So
Mm-hmm.
then it can be, then you can learn something in a better way.
Learn by building. So some people also get stuck in tutorial help. Even I used to get stuck sometimes
Yeah,
because you feel like you're learning a lot, but in the end, when you're really coding, I guess that's where the struggle begins.
yeah, that's true.
Cool. So that was the end of second section. The next section will be about tools, framework, and workflow. So the first question, how has your tech stack evolved over the years?
Right. So, you know, every time, every year, you would say there are different technologies, right? So what was relevant 5 years or 10 years back, it's not relevant today. So
Right.
the tech stack always keeps evolving for every developer. Some things might
Right.
stay consistent, but it always, you have to learn more and more. So earlier in the starting I started with HTML, CSS and jQuery, and then I switched to JavaScript, learned more about JavaScript. Then I switched to Angular and then React, and then I learned, like, earlier I used to code using the CSS classes and everything. Then I learned Sass, Tailwind and other UI libraries, and likewise other front end technologies, like learning from them and how the core concepts are used. So the concept is same everywhere, the syntax are different. So
Okay.
that's how
So,
yeah.
so where is your current tech stack? What do you
Yeah.
currently use?
So currently I use React for front end,
Mm-hmm.
and I use two types of CSS, Sass and Tailwind, for
Okay.
designing.
Mm-hmm.
Backend wise, I would say there are two major tools that I use, which is Node.js and Express. And for
Mm-hmm.
database, I use DynamoDB and MongoDB. So I
Okay.
am more familiar with DynamoDB, and because my project involves using that.
Okay.
And then for CI/CD pipelines and everything, I use both AWS and GitLab pipelines. So both
Mm-hmm.
of them works, whichever depends on what project I'm building.
Mm-hmm.
For
Okay.
cloud based, I use AWS and Google Cloud,
Mm-hmm.
and I also use
Mm-hmm.
AppWrite, which is a backend SaaS product,
Mm-hmm.
and then Netlify and Vercel for deployment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's a lot. I guess this answer doesn't overwhelm our users because everybody starts with one single things. Probably they
Yeah, that's
start
true.
with just React. But I guess you have learned this over the years. You started picking up one by one, right?
It's like
Okay.
it's an always, you have to keep learning. So if
Mm-hmm.
you learned something in React 3 years back, today it's different. React
Mm-hmm.
19 has been launched last year,
Changed. Right.
and there are a lot of new things that has been introduced. So
Right.
you need to learn as you go. That I think that
Okay.
will be the best approach.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. So the next question is what tools or practices have become absolutely necessary in your workflow? So here I mean all the editors or extensions that you use in your editor, and by practice I mean maybe clean code, dry, or things like that. So
Right.
what are yours?
So I think every front end developer with relate to me on this. I use VS Code, and I think
Yeah,
that's the best editor
me too.
for front end development. Not because it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to use, but it comes with a lot of extensions, and
Okay.
that
Mm-hmm.
helps every developer to just increase their productivity. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, VS Code, and then some
Mm-hmm.
popular extensions are GitLens. GitLens is
Right.
basically, it's a tool provided by Git, so you can see the commit history.
Git workflows. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Git workflows. Sorry, exactly the words.
Okay.
And
Apart from that,
yes,
how many extensions are currently installed in your editor?
I think more than 20. I
More
don't
than
even know
20.
how many I've installed. I think I've installed that
Uh-huh.
one HTML tag coloring thing,
Ah,
which
right,
which
right, right.
which colors the HTML tags and brackets. So that is
Right,
also
right.
installed. The other ones are Prettier, which is a
Right.
formatter tool. If
Absolutely
you use
necessary.
Prettier,
Mm-hmm.
yes, if you use Prettier, it will be
Mm-hmm.
makes your code much cleaner. And
Mm-hmm.
then I use a linter for React, which is ESLint. I think
Yes,
it's
yes.
one of the
Mm-hmm.
most popular ones, and it really helps you, even while you're coding
Mm-hmm.
your application.
Right, right.
Then yes, then we move to the browser dev tools. So I think React dev tools is a must for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
when I started using React dev tools, it helped me a lot on
Mm-hmm.
understanding how my code is working behind the scene.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then if I go for API testing and seeing how the responses are, I use Postman. I also use
Ah, right. Mm-hmm.
Insomnia sometimes, but I think
Right.
Postman is
And it's very famous.
personally
Mm-hmm.
it's easier, and I think I am more comfortable using it.
Mm-hmm.
Then for testing, I use Cypress and Jest. I am
Okay.
more familiar with Cypress, and I'm learning Jest
Oh,
just because many companies use Jest as well.
yeah. Right.
Then recently, I have started using GitHub Copilot for
Mm-hmm.
AI assistance. So that is something that companies are incorporating in their
Mm-hmm.
uh, day-to-day practice.
Mm-hmm.
So GitHub Copilot is one of the ones that I'm using.
Okay.
And the practices that you have told, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of good practices that you can follow, but one thing I must focus on is,
Mm-hmm.
I think not one thing, I think two things I must focus on. One is
Mm-hmm.
consistent formatting
Mm-hmm.
and meaningful commit messages. So
Mm-hmm.
what it means is, when your code is properly formatted,
Mm-hmm.
meaning if there are 10 developers in a team and they are using the same formatting style, so
Right.
when you save the file, and if not all the developers are using the correct formatting
Mm-hmm.
settings,
Mm-hmm.
then in the commit you see there are a lot of changes that are reflecting. So it becomes
Ah.
hard, right, to understand
Mm-hmm.
why
Mm-hmm.
this change was made, why this space was added. And in
Right. Right.
case of Python developers, a space can create havoc.
Obviously,
I
yeah.
think you know it very well.
Right.
So I think that is very important,
Mm-hmm.
consistent formatting. And
Mm-hmm.
the second thing is meaningful commit messages. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're committing your code, when you're creating a PR,
Mm-hmm.
don't write something like created at a button for this, or
Mm-hmm.
created a div for this.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a ticket, just add a ticket ID. That will
Mm-hmm.
be the best thing. But if you do not
Okay.
have a ticket, add a good descriptive, you know
But do you also use there, because Copilot also offers you assistance to auto generate the commit message? Have you
No, I
tried
haven't
it?
used that. I haven't
Uh-huh.
tried that. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. I can definitely try it from
Mm-hmm.
now on. Usually, when I commit the code, I have the ticket ID or the commit
Okay.
message,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
exactly what I am going to
Mm-hmm.
fix. So I put that in the description, no matter how
Mm-hmm.
long it is. So that
Okay.
becomes
Okay.
easier for later debugging.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Cool. I guess that is end of this section. So we are going to the next section, which is an exciting one for the junior and mid-level developers. These are advice for junior and mid-level developers. Okay, so first question, what's something you wish you knew when you were a junior?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question,
Mhm.
Sachin. I believe
Thank you.
that as a junior,
Mhm.
I thought that I should be knowing everything and I should not go to my senior dev for help,
Mhm.
which is completely wrong. It's
Okay.
okay not to know everything.
Mhm.
It's okay to make mistakes, and it's
Mhm.
okay. It's definitely important to
Mhm.
learn day by day. As a
Mhm.
junior developer, we don't know everything, we don't know how the
Mhm.
flow works, and as you code you can learn. So
Mhm.
like even today, I myself don't know a lot of things about React or web
Mhm.
development. So
Mhm.
it doesn't make me a bad developer. It's just,
Mhm.
I just have to catch up to that part.
Mhm.
So any junior developer who is starting to code, right,
Mhm.
they should, don't, they should not be feeling overwhelmed. They should
Mhm.
focus on one problem and try to solve it. And then once they are done, then they
Mhm.
learn something, make a note, then move on to the next project. Like this, they can
Mhm.
learn.
So after introduction of AI, do you still go to your senior, or is your first approach to go to LLMs?
I think that depends.
Depends.
So
Mhm.
if, let's say, there is a code bug in, like for me, I'm a front end developer.
Mhm.
So when there is a backend API issue or something like that,
Mhm.
so first I try to debug myself. That's my
Right.
approach,
Mhm.
because I want to understand the whole concept of,
Mhm.
how the web development works. So I'm still very new to backend development. What I
Mhm.
do is I first go to an LLM like, ChatGPT or Gemini, and I
Mhm.
just put in what exactly the problem is, what the error is coming, and then I
Mhm.
try to debug myself. And we
Right.
have always used Stack Overflow for our,
Of
our
course.
doubts and everything.
Mhm.
So for this thing, like, I go to my lead and I do not have any problems, asking my seniors what the issue is. But
Mhm.
before going to them, I try to solve them by
Okay.
myself. And if I
Right.
can't do it, then I don't
Mhm.
waste much time, and then I
Time.
go
Yeah.
directly to them.
Yeah. Sometimes it makes sense after a while to take help. Otherwise, it's
Yes,
going to take a lot of time. Right.
that's true.
Okay. So the next question is, how can developers stand out when applying for roles today? Because things are changing due to
Yeah,
AI.
I think that's again a very good question, and I might not be the best person to answer this,
Mhm.
because I'm still figuring out how to apply, become better when
Right.
applying. Since the
Yeah.
reason behind this is because I have made only one switch in my career,
Mhm.
which was from Wipro to Accenture. So I have not
Mhm.
hopped between multiple companies. But
Okay.
one thing
Mhm.
that I noticed when I
Mhm.
was, applying for jobs, and even today when I take interviews of
Mhm.
my juniors, or even at the people who are at my same level,
Mhm.
So I noticed that it's important to have a portfolio. Like for
Okay.
me, I am starting in open source. So last year, 2024, I think it was September or October, where my first open source PR was merged. So before that, I didn't have any open source PR. But I have worked on a lot of projects and I know a lot about front end. I don't have a way to showcase it. So I think
Okay, okay.
portfolio is very much important. You should be able to tell via your projects that you know something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it makes total sense as a front-end web developer to show what projects you build, and I guess it's also a good idea to host so that somebody can click on it and see the
Yes.
app or game that you built, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. So next one, any underrated habit that helped you grow consistently?
Underrated habit. Um, so I would
Any
say
habit can
I
use
think
it.
one habit that I have, I generally follow is make notes, and
Mm-hmm.
that's for both Google Docs and my notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And when I create a project,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to make notes what worked for me and what didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I can't make notes on every part of the project. Sometimes
Right.
I have to remember,
Mm-hmm.
but making the notes where it's very difficult to solve, and you solved
Mm-hmm.
it. So make note
Mm-hmm.
of what you did and how it worked and why it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yeah.
helps me. That helps me to a great extent.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I recently read also from a book, Gergely Orosz, I guess, the author of the Pragmatic Engineer blog, and he had said maintain a work log where you tell what you learned this week, and this also helps you in the end to become a better developer. And also during performance appraisals or reviews, you can say like what you had done.
Yeah, that's very important. When your appraisal is happening, you should have a journal ready.
So
See, this is what I worked for the whole year. Give me a good
exactly.
hike, but they don't give you. Never mind.
But yeah, good one. Workload is totally an important thing. Okay, last question in this session. If you had to start over today, what would you do differently?
Starting over, I would
Yes.
say join a tech community.
Okay.
As you know, as I was discussing with some of my friends, and
Mm-hmm.
when I joined, a local tech meetup in
Mm-hmm.
Bangalore, and I
Okay.
think I have gone to around 10 meetups till date,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say 5 years of front end experience at one side and 10 meetups at one side. I have
Mm-hmm.
learned more from the meetups and discussions
Mm-hmm.
from fellow developers than I have worked on, in the 5 years of my coding. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying about basic coding or basic syntax learning. I'm not saying that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying how to use the React concepts or front end concepts to make your app better. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if you are a junior developer, go ahead and join a community and learn from the people who are already there, because there you will find dedicated developers who are
Mm-hmm.
actually working on the technology that you are learning. So that way you are meeting the experts. So I think that that's one step that everyone should do, and I should do
Mm-hmm.
when I started as a developer.
Okay, okay. That's really a good advice. Even lately, I've been, because when I first started as well, everybody are like focused in that ecosystem. But that is totally agreeable because you're learning a lot already. But apart from that, if you can also spend some time in these meetups or just by going to conferences online, whatever free or paid, I guess, as you said, it's going to make a huge impact.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. I think
good
everybody
one.
should join a meetup. I would say, whether it's online or offline,
Hmm.
because you learn a lot, and
Okay.
when you find like-minded people, then you understand. When I delivered a talk,
Hmm.
last year 2023, and when I
Hmm.
went there, I was very much proud of myself that yeah, I have built a very good app and this is a very good topic. But
Okay.
I delivered the talk and everybody was, it's a good topic. Then one of
Hmm.
the developers there approached me and he said that, do you use this? And
Hmm.
I'll get into that detail later on. But
Hmm.
then I realized that how little I know about my particular
Okay.
topic.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I learned from there, I implemented in the project as well. So that helped me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking from experience. Communities are
Mm-hmm.
just amazing.
Good. On this same note, where can people find such meetups? Do you have any tip for that?
I think yes. So first thing is Twitter, or I would say X. So first
Okay.
thing is X,
Mm-hmm.
then Meetup.com, LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Blue Sky is one of the most
Okay.
recent social media platform.
Okay.
So you can find a lot. Just do a quick search of
Web
React
conferences
group
or.
or
Mm-hmm.
React Meetup, and you will find tons of these, and which are free.
Mm-hmm.
And there are YouTube videos and conference meetup videos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just Google it and you'll find it.
So then that was the end of the last session, and the next section, the most exciting one, the AI shift in web development. So there are, I would say, no perfect or right answers because it's still a young area that people are still exploring. Okay, on that note, I'm starting with the first question. What do you think about shift towards AI in web development? How did it help you as a senior engineer?
I think AI is a very helpful tool as of today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's transformative. So as a senior
Okay.
developer, AI has become my assistant. So
Okay.
I don't have to write, the boilerplate of the code like const my
Mm-hmm.
app, then arrow function and writing everything, or using. So I just give a command or
Mm-hmm.
write a good prompt, and it will create
Mm-hmm.
a complex app for myself. So that saves like 5 minutes of my day, but
Mm-hmm.
it definitely helps because writing
Okay.
it from scratch is a big pain. So
Mm-hmm.
I think for now it's more of an assistant, and
Mm-hmm.
it speeds up the boilerplate. It suggests patterns,
Right.
or it gives
Mm-hmm.
performance tips, but it's like an assistant, so you can use
Mm-hmm.
it for your own advantage,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't replace thinking, like
Mm-hmm.
actual thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be very sure like you are using it
Mm-hmm.
as a tool rather than depending on it completely.
Right. Especially this, when you talk about assistant, Copilot automatically predicts the next things that we are going to type. But does that mean that it is killing your creativity of solving a problem?
Up to a
What do you
some
think?
extent, yes, because you should use AI tool to
Mm-hmm.
learn what's how coding works, but not
Mm-hmm.
to skip the learning part.
Okay.
Basically what I mean is, when you're using an AI tool, then you should code yourself first and then check with the AI tool that how AI codes it. So maybe you will
Mm-hmm.
find your code better, or you will find the AI code better, but don't
Right.
let it stop how you are thinking. So when I'm
Mm-hmm.
coding, I'm asking my AI tool to create a component. I don't expect
Mm-hmm.
it to create the best component. I will
Right.
optimize it, but I should
Mm-hmm.
know the syntax. I should
Mm-hmm.
know the basic working of why this particular hook or why this function was used.
Yeah.
So that is important.
That is, yeah, I totally agree because as you said, like do code once without AI and once with AI. Maybe if you're starting, there was a blog by Adi Osmani on his Substack. He talks about
Okay.
something called skill atrophy. That's something that skill atrophy basically means that you're losing skills by not doing something. So if you're like fully relying on AI, you're kind of losing a skill of creative thinking and problem solving.
Yeah, that's true. So basically treating AI as a mentor, not as a some magical wand to solve your problems, I would say.
Yeah, it can totally explain the code so you can have a good understanding of what was written. So I guess that is very much important in solving a problem, right? Cool.
Yeah, true.
Pretty much new. So on the same note, how do you think juniors should approach AI-based web development? I guess we have answered it partially. So if you
Yeah.
have any more points, do you
I,
want
I
to
would
add
say
something on it?
I myself am a junior in using the AI tools, because I think it's six
We all
months to
are.
1 year. We all are, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true. But I think one thing that I noticed is we should avoid blind copy pasting. That's one thing
Mm-hmm.
for the coding
Okay.
part. When you
Okay.
tell your GPT to create a particular component,
Mm-hmm.
then you should know why this component was created, why certain parts
Mm-hmm.
were used, and when it's created, use it, your own skills to make it, a better component. You use all the functionalities. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the copy pasting should not
Okay.
be, used.
Mm. That can
Although,
do some damage,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it can do something else apart from what is being asked. So it can be
ex-
like additional lines of code.
exactly.
My next question: is there any useful AI resource that you would like to recommend?
I have used I have learned AI from different resources, Medium blogs or Dev2 blogs or YouTube videos. So I don't have one particular channel or place for you to learn, but I think if you Google it and if you really deep dive into your one particular concept that you want to learn, like for example, the talk that I presented in the Front End Nation conference was about suggesting optimization for React components. So there I use a decision tree classifier model. So it's a very simple model, and there were others, and I was trying to learn every tree classifier and every model that is machine learning provides. But then I realized no, I should stick with one basic thing, and that worked for me. So first understand what you want, and then do a deep research on what tools or technologies have been built around that particular thing.
Okay, all right. So my next question, what does your prompts nowadays look like? How do you improve your prompting strategy
Yeah,
nowadays?
that is very good. That is one thing that we should always talk about. I think prompts engineering is one thing that many people have made a business out of it. How to
Yes,
create prompts.
totally.
But I think we as developers, we don't need to join those courses. We have been doing this prompt engineering for many years, and
Right.
our prompt AI tool was Stack Overflow, if I'm not wrong, and I think everybody will agree to it. But yeah, prompt engineering, you get better at with time. Like for example, I used to write prompts like create a React component with
Right.
displaying user details in a table format.
Okay.
Now I don't use that. Now I modify it that what I need. Take user as props and create a React component which displays user details, user.name and user.department, for example, in a tabular format using Tailwind CSS and width with this thing, a minimum width or the height of with the view screen. So something like this, when you add more details, it becomes, you get a better result. And I think
Okay.
LLMs are improving day by day. So
Right. Giving
it
more
gets better with
context.
time. Correct.
Right.
That's what I have
Yeah.
learned. I think other people will tell us more, but I think this is one thing that we can
No,
definitely
I
follow.
agree on this point because earlier when we started, it was, as I said, like direct one-shot thing, like Stack Overflow. Just put what you want and then expect everything um,
Correct.
to be right. But as we experience further, it's not just that we have to like write detailed prompts to get things that we need, and sometimes it is multiple rounds of refining until you get the correct one. Right. So it's basically just more experimentation, right?
That's true.
Good. So my next question, coding fast with AI and debug slowly versus coding with AI assistance. What do you prefer?
I would say coding with AI assistance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like let AI suggest, but I
Right.
code.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put a prompt,
Mm-hmm.
let AI handle the big chunks of your code. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
write the schemas, the boilerplate and everything.
Right.
And then when the code is there, then you can modify it or optimize it
Mm-hmm.
according to your skill level. Don't
Mm-hmm.
rely on everything, because if you build a big project using AI and you tell
Mm-hmm.
it to build the whole thing, then
Mm-hmm.
the debugging becomes a nightmare.
Right,
I
right.
think there is a meme, very popular meme that we see, that when a developer is leaving an organization and handling his work to the new developer, he
Right.
says that when I wrote this code, only I and God knew what was happening. And now when
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving, only God knows. So it's your problem now. So I don't want to debug what AI
Mm-hmm.
provides, but yeah, make it as more of an
Mm-hmm.
assistant rather than depending totally on it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because it also helps us to debug in case of issues quickly, right? That is what that's a valuable skill in companies to debug things fast and ship quickly.
Yep.
Right. Cool. So my next question, coding with auto prediction, is that useful or destructive? Should juniors or seniors use it?
Yes, so I think this resonates with my talk at Front End Nation.
Mm-hmm.
I built a CLI tool which
Mm-hmm.
basically not optimize, which analyzes your code or the
Mm-hmm.
component that you create, React
Mm-hmm.
component, and then it suggests optimization techniques, whether it's
Okay.
required or not. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I was able to build that tool, I would say the V1 of the version 1 of that tool,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew what optimization is required for that tool.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when you are starting, if you're a junior, don't go for this. you should learn all the core concepts. And for senior developers, I think it can become a valuable tool, because in a big company, one person writes component, the other person writes, let's say, if you're writing a user card component which displays the details of a user. So one person is writing the user card component, other one is writing a list component which displays, let's say, hundreds of users. Other person is, deploying that code. So there are people who are responsible. So in that process, sometimes a good code might not be there. There can be some loopholes. So in that way, a senior developer can use, this prediction thing using the AI tools, and then they can make their code better. So that's one approach.
This is based on some things that we touched previously, right?
Yes.
How
Yes.
to,
Correct.
right? Cool. So next question is an fun question. So
Okay.
if every line of AI generated code had a nutrition label, what would be
Okay.
on your?
Oh well, that is something I need to think of. Nutrition label.
So normally
Something.
we think
Yeah.
of, what do you say, optimization, 50%, like 50 grams of optimization, 20% of stupidity, or I don't know.
So I think there should be a warning sign on every AI generated code, something that says may cause overconfidence, test before use.
Yeah,
or,
I will
or
accept that.
yeah, I think something like in the tone of like 0 calories, infinite bugs. I think, yeah.
It's always good to put a warning sign, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. That one yellow thing.
Okay, so last question. So there's a terminology that got that was creating hype in the recent days. It's called vibe coding. So my question is, when should one use vibe coding and when not to use vibe coding?
Okay, vibe coding, I would say that
Mm-hmm.
when you're it's like similar thing that we discussed before, right? When you're coding for
Mm-hmm.
the first time, if you want to save your time and you already know how the app should work, then
Mm-hmm.
you can write good prompts and create your app, and then check it step by step whether it's working fine or not.
Right.
If you are totally dependent on vibe coding, that
Mm-hmm.
then I can guarantee that you will not know what's wrong with your code,
Mm-hmm.
and then you will
Right.
blame the developer, fraternity,
Mm-hmm.
that all developers are like this, we don't know how to code. No,
Mm-hmm.
if you are using vibe coding, you should know
Mm-hmm.
why that thing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely helps you, it saves your time, but
Mm-hmm.
you should also know why this code was created and
Right.
why the other techniques were not used. So
Mm-hmm.
that way you can use this technique to,
Mm-hmm.
you know uh, increase your
Mm-hmm.
productivity threefolds or tenfolds. Yeah.
Right. I agree on that. Also, if you for simple applications, vibe coding is good for like a landing page or some about page and basic
Yeah.
stuff. But I guess if it's going to be like I read something like cloning Uber app and doing, I don't think such applications can be like just replicated with just vibe coding. And even though you have to fix, and if you don't know the basics, you will end up writing prompts and frustrating yourself
Yeah,
for the
that's
rest
true.
of your life. Okay, so having a good basics and then vibe coding is the key takeaway. All right, cool. So that was the end of the AI part. So next will be React specific questions. Okay, so the first question: what do you think every junior should truly understand before diving deep into React JS?
There is one and only answer, which is
Mhm.
JavaScript. So
Okay.
learn JavaScript, learn the fundamentals, and then jump into any tool or framework or library. That's
Mhm.
one mistake that I did when I started learning React, is not, strengthen the fundamentals of JavaScript, which, basically made me regret my decisions. But and I have to go back and learn a few things. But yeah,
Okay.
if you're starting, always learn JavaScript first. It
Mhm.
will take you a month to
Mhm.
become a good JavaScript developer, and then jump into
Mhm.
React.
So that makes it easier as well to
Yes.
work in
JavaScript,
React
React
later.
is all JavaScript.
Okay.
Just if you know JavaScript,
Mhm.
you will know React. Nothing else.
Right, right.
So I think, yeah.
Guess basically the frameworks are structured in the same way. It's
Right.
only like, the outer cover is different
Different.
thing, but inside the main engine is JavaScript. Right. Okay, so next question. Which React concept often confuse people even at mid-senior level?
Oh, there are many. So I would talk from my perspective, and
Uh-huh.
some of them that I have seen in the interviews that I have taken.
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, I would say is use effect hook. I
Okay.
think understanding the use effect hook is very necessary. When you
Mm-hmm.
have learned the core fundamentals of React,
Yeah.
then you should go with the hooks, and in
Mm-hmm.
the hooks you should learn use effect and how to
Master. Okay.
properly utilize that.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the code that you will see who are not who are not coded by the good developers, they are
Mm-hmm.
either under utilizing the use effect, or they
Mm-hmm.
are using use effect in a wrong way, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically affecting
Mm-hmm.
the performance of the app.
Right.
So that one thing is very much important.
It leads to too many re-renders, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's true. That
Mm-hmm.
dependency array is
Right.
very much important. I think
Okay.
that's one question that I have when I was giving an interview, right, some years,
Mm-hmm.
3 years back. So at that time, almost every interviewer asked me,
Mm-hmm.
what's the use of that dependency array, and
Mm-hmm.
why, how it's important, and how it affects the component lifecycle. And
Mm-hmm.
I think from those interviews I learned to use this use effect more, I would say, properly.
Mm, right, right.
So one thing is
Mm-hmm.
every person can struggle. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
once you get a hold of it, you will learn it. But yeah, that is
Right.
one thing you need to master, and I think many of the developers struggle with that.
I totally agree. I also learned from my master, Bob Cirol from Scrimba. He also said that if you're having some kind of API calls in UseEffect, and those renders are going to cost like
Yeah,
too
yeah,
many
yeah.
calls, and you're like messed up
Exactly.
getting a huge bill or something.
Yep.
Right. Cool.
Um, there
Do you
are
want to add
others as well.
something? No.
Yes,
Okay. Sure.
there are others as well. I think two or three things.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is prop types. So
Mm-hmm.
basically the type of props that are being passed to the components. And I
Mm-hmm.
think prop types is one way to handle them in JavaScript based projects. If you're
Mm-hmm.
using TypeScript, it has a different method. So
Okay. Okay.
I would not comment more on TypeScript.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to legacy projects and JavaScript projects, you
Mm-hmm.
should know what prop types is and how
Mm-hmm.
to use them properly.
Okay.
The third thing is accessibility,
Mm-hmm.
and I think implementing accessibility while creating components is very much important. I think we can dive deep later on,
Into
but
more
that is,
accessibility.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is one thing that developers should know and how to include them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And last but not the least, I would say learn how to write unit tests. So
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I believe I did not use unit tests I did not use to write the unit tests. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, let the QA do his job and they will find out a bug. But if you write them right, if
Mm-hmm.
if you write a proper unit test, if you learn how to write
Mm-hmm.
them, then
Mm-hmm.
it makes your app better because you will know what the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that
Right.
is one thing that developers struggle. I struggle
Mm-hmm.
myself. I
Mm-hmm.
like I first of all I hated to write unit tests.
Unit test, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a pain
but
in the
now
yes.
it's more like I am making of it like a habit to
Mm-hmm.
learn it and then be very comfortable with unit tests. So yeah,
Okay, okay, cool. So three things to keep in mind, three or four things, right?
yes.
Cool. So next one, what are some, okay, okay, I laughing. So what are some common anti-patterns in React you have seen juniors fall into?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I will tell from my experience as well. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing is when I learned state management, so I was overusing context API for everything, which is
Mm-hmm.
not good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you create a React app, right?
Right.
There's one thing that always you should keep in mind is to reuse the code. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to write the same logic over and over again. So
Right.
if you're not separating the presentational versus the container components,
Mm-hmm.
that will create an issue. So what I mean by that is, if there is an component which is calling an API,
Mm-hmm.
don't write all logic in that parent component. Break
Mm-hmm.
it into smaller components and make util functions like
Right, right.
for calling APIs and everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is a very good practice. A good developer should follow that. I learned it
Mm-hmm.
very late, but yeah, I think that's one thing that one can improve.
Yeah, I totally agree. If there is one call which is like basically used by multiple resources or steps of things that has to be done, then it's good to use utils. Okay, then my next question: do you prefer working with React context Redux or something else for state management today, and why?
So state management depends on the type of app you are building. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are building a personal project, a small
Mm-hmm.
project, let's say a to-do app. So you
Mm-hmm.
log into the website, there is a to-do app list, you enter new to-dos or you delete the existing to-dos.
Mm.
It is a simple app. So
Simple
don't
one.
use
Mm-hmm.
Redux or Zustand for that. Use
Mm-hmm.
context API.
Mm-hmm.
Understand how state management works behind the context API. But if you're building a big project like an e-commerce website,
Mm-hmm.
then you must use something that is more flexible, or it has more superpowers, you can say.
Right.
So Redux or Zustand gives you that
Mm-hmm.
superpowers, and context API might not be that good in the aspect of creating a big React application.
Mm-hmm.
So it totally depends. If you're learning,
Okay.
use context API. If you are now comfortable with state management, learn
Mm-hmm.
Redux or Zustand.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So next question: how do you ensure your React components stay performant? This is
I think,
something that you are
yeah.
currently or always working on, right?
Yeah, I think a performance optimization is an ever evolving thing, and
Right.
you can
Mm-hmm.
always make your app more optimized or perform better.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain things that you can follow. So by
Mm-hmm.
default, it will make your app better, or you would
Mm-hmm.
say it will make your app perform better.
Mm-hmm.
So very first thing is obviously use the most popular optimization techniques like memoization or
Mm-hmm.
use callback functions or things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing which is very much you have to understand the logic behind those
Mm-hmm.
concepts, because when I
Right.
take interviews with a lot of people don't understand what memoization is. They say
Mm-hmm.
I will use React memo and it will stop re-rendering a lot of times, but that
Okay.
doesn't how it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I learned it from my experience to understand the concepts, why it's
Mm-hmm.
required and why it's not, and then
Mm-hmm.
implementing it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing.
Okay.
And if we go further, I would say use higher order components. It's one of the good
Mm-hmm.
practice, and make
Okay.
sure to avoid unnecessary re-renders while you're
Okay.
implementing state in your component.
Mm-hmm.
So again, make sure use effect is utilized properly.
But
And
to interrupt.
yeah, so higher order components is, in some simple terms, there's one component and there's this higher order component. It will take
Mm-hmm.
that component, it will add some superpowers, and it will send you.
Mm-hmm.
You can use
Mm-hmm.
it. So if you wrap a component, if you wrap a component with a higher order component, right, then you
Mm-hmm.
can use the same component to do a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
a simple it's like, if I'm putting it very simply, okay.
Okay.
So it's more like must have used are you across higher order functions in JavaScript?
I've not really used it.
So basically what it does is, like, there is, if you are trying to calculate something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there are two numbers given on a website, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to add them. So
Mm-hmm.
you in your parent component you will add a logic of add function.
Mm-hmm.
4 plus 4, 8,
Mm-hmm.
done. Then if you want to multiply them, basically
Mm-hmm.
building a calculator, that's what I'm saying, but in a very
Okay.
simple way. Just
Mm-hmm.
one function, plus,
Mm-hmm.
minus, add, subtract,
Mm-hmm.
multiply and divide. So
Right.
so if you're implementing, so you have to write four functions: add, multiply, divide, subtract, right? So
Right.
if you write that code repeatedly, it will not be a good code. So higher
Mm-hmm.
order functions is, you enter two values and then you enter the operation that you want to do, and then
Mm-hmm.
in that
Ah, okay.
the
Mm-hmm.
logic will be same, but it
Mm-hmm.
will execute according to what
What you have
the
passed as
function.
a
Yes,
parameter, right?
correct,
Okay. Okay.
correct. So it's like that, higher order
Ah, okay.
functions.
Okay. So these
So
kind of things can also optimize React applications better.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. So it's like a coding, I would say, practice
Mm-hmm.
that you use. It looks very weird in the starting, but
Right.
as you go along the way, you will understand how this works and
Mm-hmm.
how we can utilize it.
Okay. Good point. So next question is based on TypeScript. So the first question is, do you use TypeScript in your React ecosystem? If yes, what's one thing you have found helpful or even challenging about using it recently?
Right. So I believe TypeScript is one of the most used languages now in trend
Mhm.
for React projects, and I
Okay.
understand why it's picking up the trend, because it's clear, it's more precise,
Mm-hmm.
and personally I have worked more on the JavaScript JSX based projects, so
Right.
I don't know a lot about TypeScript, but I know the
Mm-hmm.
basics, and I
Mm-hmm.
would say TypeScript gives you a lot of other functionalities which the vanilla JavaScript will not give you. So I think TypeScript is definitely someone should learn, and I am learning myself. So I would say I'm not an expert, but yeah, I think everybody should learn it.
Okay. I guess also the thing that you mentioned with prop types earlier can
Yes,
be
correct.
easily handled with TypeScript, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Then my next question, how do you balance writing clean code versus shipping fast in React projects?
Okay, so I would say build a habit of
Mm-hmm.
creating a clean code first, and then when you become, adapt to that habit, then you will be able to ship the codes faster. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, sometimes what we follow is make it work and then make it right. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but that is a good approach in the starting. It's not a good
Okay.
approach when it comes to bigger projects, because
Mm-hmm.
if you touch one thing, you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what other things it will affect.
Right.
So
Okay.
when you
Mm-hmm.
say clean code, right, make sure what you're writing you understand, and
Mm-hmm.
write the exact only the necessary functions or the necessary things in your code, and
Mm-hmm.
then see if it's working or not. If it's not working, take help,
Mm-hmm.
but don't try to add or ship it directly or deploy it to prod directly.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be in a hurry, because if you I have done this, I've known this from my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
If something breaks in prod, then
Yeah.
it's going to take away your nights, and you will keep debugging till 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and you will
Mm-hmm.
not know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell you a very short, small, funny story.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this go live date with a
Mm-hmm.
client, and
Okay.
they were using a library to
Mm-hmm.
fetch the details from the payload and
Mm-hmm.
display that data in a HTML format.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what happened is that library was outdated, and then there was a
Okay.
new version that came,
Mm-hmm.
and that new version was not implemented by the client side. So
Mm-hmm.
on customer facing side, there were blank templates or blank screens that were coming out,
Oh my God.
and that
Mm-hmm.
happened because they upgraded that package.json file and
Right, right.
other files. They upgraded
Mm-hmm.
that version, but they did
Mm-hmm.
not update their code according to the new version of the
Mm-hmm.
library. Now
Mm-hmm.
there was a big difference between the code that went to prod and then the code that their code base was built on. But
Mm-hmm.
this is one learning that
Mm-hmm.
they were trying so hard, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was on the call till 5 a.m. in the morning that I was just speaking, and we were trying to debug what's happening, and then
Mm-hmm.
the last decision that was made to roll it back, because
Okay.
because if we made a lot of changes. So
Mm-hmm.
then from the client side it was decided that roll it back to the previous version, and then later
Mm-hmm.
on in the coming week when we debugged, we understood that a lot of things has been changed in the library. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very much important not to hurry and
Okay.
use have some patience when deploying. So write a
Especially
clean
if it's
code. Yeah,
especially
especially
if
if it's a
it's a
prod.
big project and
Yeah.
so many other what do you say, the dependencies, or if the stake is high, then
Yes,
don't
correct.
ship it like super fast. Okay. Okay. So last question in this round. What's a small change in how you write React that made a big difference in your workflow or career?
Okay, so I could think of three things mostly.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay.
first thing is component structuring and
Mm-hmm.
designing. So
Mm-hmm.
how you write components, how you create those folders, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
write components and then utils and then store and everything. So that
Yeah.
is very important. So you should be
Okay.
very clear on that, that structure and the how you write the code, because
Mm-hmm.
if you are not there and some other developer took
Mm.
over
Yeah.
your work,
Of course.
and they will not be able to, if they are not able to understand what they are reading in front of them, so
Mm-hmm.
they will not be able to debug any issue. So
Right. Right.
that's one thing which is very important.
Mm.
The second thing is developer experience. So
Mm-hmm.
when I said I was using prettier and ESLint, with
Mm-hmm.
strict rules, so I
Right.
made it as a habit that I
Mm-hmm.
will use a prettier setting which is fixed across
Mm-hmm.
every VS Code tool that I use,
Mm-hmm.
every instance of that. So in my project, there is a basic rule. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't use prettier. I use the default VS Code formatter, and
Mm-hmm.
I have made it a habit to use that.
Okay.
And then
Mm-hmm.
ESLint is something that it's a linter, right? So I
Right.
always
Mm-hmm.
use it. So
Mm-hmm.
this now I can focus on logic building
Mm-hmm.
rather than wasting my time formatting why this extra line is there and everything. That is very
Mm-hmm.
much important. And
Right.
The third thing is accessibility and semantics. So if I have to describe it in one line, use button for a button, don't use div for a button.
Okay.
Basically,
Yep.
use the correct HTML tags. So which that is very important, because if you don't use it, it will be a big problem in the coming future, because you will have to debug why it's working and why it's not behaving the correct way.
Right.
Yeah.
And also for accessibility plays a huge role, right?
I think we can discuss that next.
In the
Right?
next section, yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. These points make total sense. Want to have a proper structure and accessibility. Good points.
Take your
Let's go to
time.
the next section. It's accessibility specific. This is something that Shlok have also worked on. So the first question, why is accessibility important to you and how did you get into it?
Yes. So this is a topic that I really wanted to discuss. And so first of all, we need to understand what accessibility is. You see, almost of all of the internet users that we have, around 1 billion users face some kind of disability. Now that disability can be of hearing, can be of visual, or anything. So when you see internet should be a space where everyone should feel inclusive. Everyone should be able to access everything. It's 2025, and I think everybody should have access to the new tools, technologies, utilities that that are coming out in the market. Accessibility is that approach. Making websites accessible to the disabled users is what ADA compliance and accessibility means.
Okay.
There are like a set of rules that you need to follow in your websites to make it accessible to the people who are not facing disabilities. Okay. Now, for me, accessibility was the first major project I worked on. Basically, what happened is, when I was in my previous company, there was a website was live and the product was reachable to the customers directly. Now, the issue that happened is, our product manager came us and told us that we might face a legal issue because the website was not accessible at all. So we were wondering what is it and why we are spending 10 hours a day to build this website more performant, more better, and we are optimizing our database and everything. Why is it not accessible? So that point came when I first knew about and this is like 4 years back, when I first came to know about accessibility. And then what I realized is, none of our web pages were accessible. So I took upon myself to take this task and understand what accessibility is, because there were other developers who were involved in other important tasks. So I think I would say it was somewhere around 50 components and spread across 20 plus web pages. And that was the first major project I worked on. I made the whole production app accessible. And I think I can proudly say that that was one of the most dedicated projects I worked on. And I think we made a significant impact. Now, why is accessibility important? So countries like US, UK, or Australia have a law that asks that basically mandates it for the companies or businesses to make their websites accessible. If they don't do it, they will face legal charges, and I'm talking serious level legal charges. So that's why accessibility is important. Plus, the one thing that every developer must understand, and I understood it along my journey, that you are not your user. Your user is someone else. So if you are making those 1.3 billion people to be able to use your app, then you are creating a significant customer base. When I say 1.3 billion, that's the total count. So maybe out of that, let's say 10 million people use or 1 million people use your product. That 1 million can generate a lot of revenue. So think of it as that perspective as well. Plus, you are making their lives better. You are reaching out. Your product is making their lives. They are able to use your product. They are able to get benefit from it. So that's why this accessibility thing is important. And I think it's so. I have delivered two talks on accessibility, and both were of the same topic: is your website visible? That's the topic of my the title of my topic. And what happened is, I went to that local meetup in Bangalore, and I think 120 people attended. And when my talk was the last one, and when I stepped on and I asked the audience who knew about accessibility, I think only two hands were raised, and none of them even knew what accessibility is.
That was out of how many people?
120.
Oh my
So,
God.
so I was shocked because even the organizers of that particular meetup, the company who was organizing a meetup on that day, their engineers were also like, we don't know what accessibility is, or if they might know, they are not regularly implementing it.
Right.
So it's because in India we don't have a rule or law that mandates accessibility, but it's there in other countries. When that happened, it changed a lot of things. It changed my perspective that how much it's important and how much there are many people who are not aware of this.
Aware
So
of this.
yeah, so accessibility is everywhere. It's like you see there are captions in videos, right? Now there are many people who do not hear it, who cannot hear. So they read that
Captions, yes.
content from those captions, and then now they know. Even when you're watching a movie or something which is not from your own language, let's say French or some other language, you need subtitles, right? So that is also one form of accessibility. So I think accessibility is very much important, and it should be a mandatory thing for everyone to learn.
But I mean, I totally agree. But only thing is, once or when a junior developer or somebody is developing, they are just solving a problem. I guess everybody looks web design as solving a problem just for yourself. But I guess if you take the whole spectrum of people, then you should be thinking. And if it's really a big app that has a potential, then I guess it would be nice to handle it right from the beginning, right? Rather than refactoring 50 components.
Yeah, that's very true. It in the long run it will save a lot of time. It will save a lot of code refactoring. Just like I said, right? I have to change a lot of code. I have to go through every component, every web page. And if you when everyone who has worked on a production level application which is live to the customers, it's not easy to debug or change 10 pages of that website. Like if you go onto an e-commerce website and you have to change the whole code, it's going to be a nightmare. So it's not easy. So why not build it in the very first place? So that is something we learned, and that team, I think I shared my knowledge, and all of the developers started using that knowledge to build better components. So they were already very good developers, I would say. But one thing that they didn't know is accessibility, and I even didn't know. I learned it, and then I helped other team members to learn it, and I think that made a lot of difference. And I can definitely say that I saved a lot of money of my client by not letting them face legal issues. So yeah, this is one significant impact that I did, and that's why I talk about it a lot.
Awesome. Then in that case, do you have some area roles that that junior developers should know, or a set of, there are a lot of roles and this key attributes, but what do you think are very basic, like 3 to 5?
That's very important question you have asked. So you see, when you're learning React, right, or JavaScript, I can bet that none of the developers will go directly and learn HTML. I can guarantee it because I did it, and I knew HTML from my college, and that was like, it's a div tag, it's an anchor tag, that's it. What else is there in HTML? So people, developers, what they do, they use div, or they use span for everything. Okay, which is not correct. So first thing first, before learning JavaScript, learn basics of HTML. Learn what semantic tags are. Like there is an example, there is a difference between B tag and strong tag. So one must understand what's the difference between that. They do the same thing. To your visual, it will be the same thing. Like the text will be bold, but strong and bold has a different meaning altogether when it comes to semantics. So if you're a junior developer, if you're learning React or any front-end framework, first of all, learn the basics of HTML. Understand what different types of tags do, why you should use a table for a table data and not a div and span for that. So it's very much important. So these small things a junior developer can learn, and then from there they can build accessible components. So I do not expect anyone to be very good in the accessibility from the start. When you have built a good understanding of how everything works in a framework, then you can start with accessibility. So that stands out.
It's a very valuable point. Already using semantic HTML tags makes it accessible from not accessible to accessible on the first level. So that's an awesome point.
I think there's one more point that the developers might benefit. Many of the interviewers are asking accessibility based questions as of today. So if your focus is only about cracking interviews, then I think this is one thing that definitely a good developer will be asking you. They'll not go dive deep into it. They will maybe spend a minute or two. Like if I'm taking someone's interview, I definitely ask that question. But I don't judge based on the accessibility thing, because there was a time when I didn't know it. But it's good to have a knowledge about it, because it's important in the long run. Yeah.
Okay, you mean this semantic HTML tags?
Yes,
thing,
semantics,
right?
accessibility, ADA compliance. Just search accessibility on Google and you will get everything about it.
All the keywords.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are some companies who hire without knowing this knowledge, but there are some companies who make sure that you know accessibility before applying, or they mention in their job description.
I don't think I have seen accessibility as part of JDs, but I have definitely seen it in the interviews and other interviews that I have given. Very few. I think out of 15 or 20 interviews, there's one interviewer who will ask you about accessibility. But when you are working for a foreign client, like for me, I'm in India. So if I'm working for an Australian client or a US client, then they will focus on this part, because every developer can develop something and they will be able to complete the project in time, because that's their job. But will they be able to handle every aspect of development, and that the product manager or the product owner doesn't have to debug everything? Then it becomes a big factor. So it totally depends on what kind of project you are working. If it's a India based startup, I don't think they will ever ask you a question on accessibility, which is not bad and not good in both sense. But yeah, so it's a good knowledge to have.
Okay. Also, for listeners, I was doing this. I have yet to complete this front-end developer path from Scrimba. So basically, tells everything what you need to know as a front-end developer. And I saw one specific chapter for accessibility where they mention all this visual hierarchy, the contrast, and all those things. So I guess if anybody is structuring a course, it's good to include accessibility. Good. Then I have the next question. What are the most overlooked accessibility issues in typical React applications?
Right. I think the first and foremost is the alt tag in images. So you see when your internet is slow and image is not loading, there is an alt tag displayed, right?
Alt tag.
You should be having a good alt text for that image. So if it's an image of a, let's say, a mountain like Mount Everest, you should not be adding an alt text with image 1 or image 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You should add a text of Mount Everest or a mountain or something like that, which is relevant to that image. So that is very much important. The next thing is, I would say, the labels. So you see there is a label or tag for when you are creating your forms in React. So if you're using Formify and everything, that they have their own components, that is the different thing. But if you're creating a form from scratch, there is a label thing. So for every input, there will be a label attribute as well, or you can add label before that tag. So that is very important. You have to write the correct label as well, because when you use a screen reader, it will read out the label. It will not read out the input that it's an input tag. No, if the input tag is for name and the label is, I don't know, popular city in India, then it's it's not going to make sense, because the reader will read it as input box or something like that, but the name will be something else, the entry will be something else. So that becomes very a horrible user experience. So that is one pain point. And I think one thing that I've already mentioned, using div and span for every task that you do, don't do it. If there's a button, use the button tag. Customize your CSS so that it supports throughout your website or throughout your design system. If you have your own CSS design system, then make sure you are adding button as a button and not div or span as a button.
Totally agree. Good points. I also saw this label thing that you mentioned. It was there in one of the Frontal Nation talks on the same day that you gave. It was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
talk
Navya
called Cake
Agrawal,
is
I
a
think.
Lie.
Yeah.
No, it was called Cake is a Lie from Ramona Schwering. So,
Yes, yes.
yes, she
That
told
talk was
that,
also very good.
right. She told that to use labels for the input fields. That is good for the screen reader. Awesome. Okay, cool. So next one, do you use any tools or browser extensions to audit accessibility during development?
Yes. So see, I am not a user
Mm-hmm,
of that thing. So if I have to build an accessibility, either I have a team that can assess that
mm-hmm,
whether the website is accessible or not.
mm-hmm.
Plus, I need some tools that imitate the behavior of how that disabled person will perceive this
Right.
website. So
Mm-hmm,
some of the I will list some of the popular ones. So we
mm-hmm.
have in Chrome we have a lighthouse we
Yeah,
can use
Lighthouse
to
report.
check for the accessibility scores, and we have Axe
Right.
dev tools similar to lighthouse, and then we have screen readers.
And
So I think voiceover for Mac, and then there is NVDA, JAWS, and Microsoft Narrator for
mm-hmm.
Microsoft, and there are a few
Okay.
others for Linux, but I have not worked on them.
Mm-hmm,
But yeah, every OS provides accessibility tool. So
mm-hmm,
if there is a person who cannot see and they are
mm-hmm,
want to use Microsoft laptop, then they only use this keyboard to access it,
mm-hmm,
right? So
mm-hmm,
every top OS and every top company provides a way for your website to be accessible. You need to
mm-hmm,
know which tools, and you need to get used to them.
mm-hmm,
Then your when you are building your website or your
mm-hmm.
application, then use those tools to test them out.
That makes total sense. This one extension, was it an extension, this Axe thing that you spoke?
Yes, Axe dev tools.
Okay.
So it's an extension, you
Okay.
can use it in Chrome. I think it's
Okay.
also available in Firefox. But yeah.
Okay, I'll put it in the show notes. And I guess one more thing that in Chrome there is already accessibility thing that you can check separately. I don't know if it is available. I guess in Firefox as well, but
Yes,
you
there
get
is
like.
tool. There are tools.
Hmm.
But what I would say is, I have been using this Lighthouse and Axe for so long. I think I have
Hmm.
not even tried to explore that part, which is
Hmm.
my bad. I think
Hmm.
these tools already provide a lot of functionalities. So if
Hmm.
you like, just like React Dev tools, right? These are
Okay.
tools
Okay.
for
Hmm.
accessibility. So
Accessibility.
yeah, they
That's
provide
good.
a very good score. They will like provide a score of what your score of the website is,
Yeah.
and if it's bad, then you can list out the
Hmm.
components that are not working correctly,
Hmm.
so that way you can make your code better.
Yes, yes. That makes good sense because it's a dedicated tool on one thing. Second thing is I've seen Lighthouse Report. Man can definitely, make use of it. Cool. So that we have one last question before we jump into our fun round. So could you give an example of an accessibility issue you fixed that had real user impact?
Yes, definitely. So there are actually two examples. The first one I
Mm-hmm.
already told about, making the website accessible across the 50 components, but
Mm-hmm.
there was this one thing where we had a div
Mm-hmm.
which was a button actually. So the button was a
Okay.
div, and
Okay.
perfectly working code, no issues with API calling and nothing like that. And when I
Mm-hmm.
first started coding, I was like, okay, this is a button we're using div, that must be the industry standard, and I coded it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, there is one attribute known as role, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and when you have a div, you can add a
Mm-hmm.
on click handler on that div.
You're right.
Now that div can
Mm-hmm.
occupy the whole screen or just a dot,
Mm-hmm.
depends
Mm-hmm.
on your CSS. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not adding that role
Mm-hmm.
on that particular div, it's not going to, when you are, you see, how that Microsoft narrator works, or have you used a tab while you navigating the website? It's
Mm,
more
to
like,
switch from
yes,
one tab
correct.
to others.
When you enter a form, right, any form on any
Mm-hmm.
website, you
Mm-hmm.
type in and then you press tab and it goes to
Tab
the next
goes to the next field.
next field, right? So
Right.
similarly, so when I was
Mm-hmm.
navigating through the website,
Mm-hmm.
that role thing was not there, and the
Mm-hmm.
website contained more like 6 to 7 buttons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
all buttons were of the same format, div, and then
Okay.
there was no role. So
Mm-hmm.
the browser, the tab function, right, the tab key,
Mm-hmm.
when I pressed it, it went to the browser, then it went to some of the the logo of the
Mm-hmm.
company, and then a few more places, and then skipped to the last part. So none
Okay.
of those buttons were accessible. So if you're not able to access the major thing, which is if it was a customer facing website and they are not able to access their orders using those buttons, it was like a horrible thing to have on a production app. Nightmare. Yes. So I think that adding that role was very much important.
So the role was role equal to button or something like
yes,
that?
role equals to button. Now this is a fix. This is a workaround, because then the reader will take it as a button. But initially you should use button for a button.
Then you don't have to, I mean, it literally makes sense to use button for a button, and then you don't have to add the role, I guess, right? For a button.
Exactly. So that is one thing that I think other developers can also follow.
So,
I mean, if they are working on accessibility related enhancements.
That is a really nice tip. It's a learning for me as well. Good. So, that concludes the accessibility section. No more technical. I mean, very technical, but in a fun way. Okay, let's jump into fun and personal round. So, first question: if you could only use one programming language for the rest of your life, which would it be and why?
If I am not using, I'm doing anything, I would love to stay in JavaScript, because with JavaScript you can do front end, you can do back end, you can write API, everything you can do with JavaScript. And I think it's going to be popular it's already popular, and it's going to be more popular in the coming days. So yeah, all love for JavaScript, man.
It's like the famous Three Idiots dialogue. Jump on up to secret hole. Right?
That's true.
Do you suggest any books for JavaScript? I mean, there are hundreds of, but do you have any personal favorite in that area?
So
like
personally,
book or any go-to resource?
Okay, so I think personally I have not used any book for reading. I have mostly stuck to the free resources, like Medium blogs or dev.to blogs and free code camp, YouTube channels. So I don't have a book for it. Yeah, W3 schools. That was the first one when we used to learn HTML. So I think mostly the free and the most available part, and like Geeks for Geeks also, there's one very notable website. So I think these websites I have used to learn web development, and then the work that I do made me learn more about it. So I think if you are really one blog website is logrocket.io.
Logrocket, yeah, they write very
good
articles.
They write very good blogs. I think my core fundamentals of JavaScript and things like how debouncing works, or how a component re-renders and lifecycle methods, all of this I learned from the blogs from that website. So I think people can explore. All they need to do is just go to Google and search for your topic and your blog website. I think you will get the most viewed blog for that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for giving all the resources. One of my friend who is working as a senior developer, he also told me to read this book called "You Don't Know JavaScript Yet" by Kylie Simpson, I guess. I opened the book. It was like very much detailed. I would love to read it at some point. Good. So the next question: what's the weirdest coding advice you ever received?
I would say, if it works, don't touch it. So I think that's the most common and the most important advice I have got as a developer. Because sometimes when there are legacy systems are there, right? And I remember when I have worked on React projects which had class-based components, and in the world of hooks, it's very difficult to learn, go back and code using the class-based components. And I believe that I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah, if your code is working, then make sure to add more details around that code and not change it. But yeah, if you have the idea and you can optimize the code better, do it. But if you don't have the idea and there's nobody to guide you, then don't try to be smart. Just add details there and don't touch it.
Okay, fine. I guess there is also a similar saying like, don't change any code on Fridays.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, we have a rule in our team, and I think previous teams as well, that there was no deployments on Fridays. Because there's no availability on Saturdays and Sundays, and some teams are not 24/7. So I think no deployments on Fridays for any team.
Some are weird advices, but they are like practical as well, I guess.
Yeah, that's very true.
Cool. Then next question: is there a tech myth or trend you think is totally overhyped?
Yes, I think everybody is saying that React is now too old school and it can be replaced
Mm-hmm.
by other frameworks, and React is not that effective.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the people who are saying this do not know how React works. So
Mm-hmm.
overhyping means you are saying that React doesn't work, but it
Mm-hmm.
does. And if you truly understand about how the functionalities are, the core functionalities that are provided by
Mm-hmm.
React, you will be able to make a very good web application. Now we don't know what happens in 20 years from now, but for today,
Mm-hmm.
I think degrading React is a very bad thing, and I personally hate that developer. I mean, you have a
Mm-hmm.
good framework, I respect it. Don't say anything
Okay.
bad about React.
Okay. So React developers stay strong, right?
Yeah, React developers stay strong.
Good. So next question is: have you built any app that made your life easy? And if you did, would you like to share to the world so that it makes easier for others?
Well, I'll be honest here. I have not made a lot of personal projects, although I have
Mm-hmm.
made it locally and I understood a lot of functionalities,
Mm-hmm.
but not much that are online available.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say a good project that I worked on was accessibility, which
Mm-hmm.
I learned from where I learned a lot of things. But
Mm-hmm.
for the open source, I think I'm still new, and I think
Mm-hmm.
I will be contributing more. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just
Yeah, I
follow me
mean,
on
being an open source itself is
and
making,
everything. Yeah.
right. That itself makes a lot of other people's life easy, right? So
Yep.
it's a
Yep.
contribution. Good. Last one. What's your guilty pleasure when you need a break from coding?
Break from coding. If I
Hmm.
am not coding, then I am mostly watching football.
Okay.
Football is like love of my life. I
Hmm.
would say I watch every type of football, which is whether it's
Hmm.
ISL or La Liga or
Hmm.
Premier League or Bundesliga.
Hmm.
So I watch every kind of football, and I am mostly
Hmm.
into watching. I can literally binge watch each and every match of La Liga or
Really?
of every season, and I will
Okay.
not be tired because I am a very high critic. Like,
Hmm.
I do not go and play football on the on the field. I cannot do that, but
Hmm.
I can definitely understand the tactics behind how a
Hmm.
football game is played. And when
Hmm.
me and my friends who are like real football fans, when we sit together, all we do is criticize why he is not running that way, why is he passing there. But that is like a peaceful place for me,
Okay.
and I would say that yeah,
Hmm.
after watching football, I might be depressed or I might be very happy, but yeah, it definitely gives me a break
Hmm.
from everything.
Good to know. I guess you should also travel to Europe or
Yeah, I'm
where.
planning to. I mean, I am trying to save as much as I can because
Uh,
definitely I want to watch a live football match. So
hmm.
I would say yeah, one
As you're
day
a
for sure.
conference speaker, you can already plan your trip,
Yeah, I think yeah,
speaking
that's a
and
very good
watching.
idea. Maybe any conference like Riyadh Alicante in Spain, and then I can explore the country as well and the city.
Exactly. Good. So that was fun end of the fun round. Right. So next one is also an exciting round. This one will go fast compared to all
Okay,
our other rounds.
okay.
This it's a rapid fire round. Name one framework you would like to try next.
I would say View.
Okay, I can help. I started
Okay.
with you. Okay, second question. Book or blog post you gift the most or like to recommend to others?
Log Rocket and Free
Okay,
Code Camp.
very good resources. Next one. Music silence or white noise while coding?
I think music. It
Okay.
helps me focus.
Uh, okay. Do you have, my next question is, do you have a favorite go-to music or playlist while coding?
No, I don't. I usually find one song and listen to it on a repetitive basis
Okay.
until the time it irritates me. So it changes. Like every week, I will have a new playlist.
So is there any genre that you listen to?
I think except
Is
love songs and romantic songs, I hear
mm-hmm.
every other song.
Okay.
So rap music or I would say
Mm-hmm.
party music or anything like that. So
Okay. Okay. Good to know. So next question. Favorite tech YouTuber or YouTubers in the field of web development?
Yes, this is a very good question. I think there are many, but some of them I really admire. First is Akshay Saini, and I think I have been
Okay.
following him for quite some time. He's a very good teacher, and he has produced a lot of content around JavaScript and React, and I think he's
Okay.
one to follow. The other one is Harkirat Singh.
Okay.
So he has very precise and informative videos, and
Mm-hmm.
he does not, beats around the bush and tries to talk nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
He tells what is required and what's important and how you can build your
Mm-hmm.
apps. And
Okay.
third person is, I think, Tanay Pratap. So
Mm-hmm.
he is also one of the very good teachers that I have seen on YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
he also talks very precisely about what is required. I think these
Mm-hmm.
three are very
Personal
I would
favorite.
say I prefer them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there are
Mm-hmm.
many other YouTubers I think that I follow, and I think there is no end to that. I think
Right.
Chai and Code is one of the best, top YouTubers for building, guiding how to, find roadmaps for your development. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have Harry. I think Code with Harry. He's one of the
Mm-hmm.
one of the oldest developers, or I would say one of the
Okay.
oldest teachers here. And I think Tapas Adhikari is one of the emerging YouTuber for
Mm-hmm.
text, React and JavaScript. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I have met him personally, and
Okay.
he's one of the founders of he's the founder of React Play. It's an online
Mm-hmm.
community, and React
Okay.
Play gave me the chance to come and deliver my talk. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I follow him on YouTube. He also explains
Mm-hmm.
things very precisely, and I think I admire him a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I mean, that's
Yeah,
one
sorry it
lineup
took
of
a lot, but I think I should mention all my teachers. I think it's only fair that I'm here talking to you. So yeah,
no problem. Definitely good to hear. That's a good lineup of Indian YouTubers, I guess. I have never explored previously any of their talks, but I would definitely look it up.
yep.
Okay, so on the same note, name three of your role models or heroes.
But from a
Name three.
developer,
Yeah, who shaped who you are in the term, like in the world of web development.
okay. So three mentors. I would say one is Akshay Saini, definitely.
Okay.
He was there from the starting stages,
Mm-hmm.
and other one is, I think, Tanay Pratap. He also
Mm-hmm.
had some good videos when I was starting on web development.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one is Web Dev Simplified. They have a YouTube channel, so
Right,
they
right.
produce very good content around
Okay.
web development. And
Okay.
I think, sorry, one more mention I would say, which is
Mm-hmm.
Free Code Camp. So
Mm-hmm.
Free Code Camp also gets a lot of YouTubers to teach certain things on their YouTube channel. I think Free Code Camp is
Right.
the best resource, one of the best
Mm-hmm.
resources for
Yeah.
anyone to go and explore front end or full stack.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
totally agree on the last point as well, because when I started, they had like so much free certification on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all those things. Very good resource. Good. Next one. Three things you need for sure before coding.
Okay, if I'm in office, I need that hot ginger tea before I start coding, and then I
Okay.
need my headphones, and
Okay.
I need an external monitor.
Yeah.
It's very much important. So these three things are
Totally.
mostly important. When I'm at home, that tea changes from coffee or something else, but the
Yeah.
other two things remain consistent.
Yeah. I cannot. What do you say? Stress more on the point of having an external monitor.
That's true, especially if
Cool.
you're a front-end developer.
Yeah. Next question. One keystroke mapping you'd tattoo on your arm. It's like keyboard shortcut or something.
I would add that button escape, because sometimes I am just so much tensed, and there's
Uh,
so much pressure, and I just want to tap that button like Ben 10, just tap
right,
and
right,
then
right.
get away from this, like a Doraemon's door, anywhere door. So yeah, escape
That's a
button
good word.
definitely.
That's a good word. Next one. Favorite bug tracking ritual.
I always, do something of like a prayer ritual like this when I, compile my code. But when I do this, I just, sometimes I do like this, that the bug gets tracked and gets fixed, or something similar like that. So it depends,
Okay.
usually depends.
Okay. Next one. Most overrated JavaScript framework right now.
I don't think any framework is overrated. I mean, some people will say React, but
Yeah.
I would disagree. I think every framework has its own capabilities and advantages. So
Okay.
it really depends on the developer that is using it.
Mhm.
So I would say no, none.
Okay. Fine. Next one. One strategy to stay razor sharp, focused to get things done, especially in this world of distractions.
I would say code at night, be a night owl. But I know that's not possible because if you have a job at
Hmm.
in the morning, so if you
Hmm.
are um, want to be distraction free,
Hmm.
then and I would say this in the very meaner way,
Hmm.
decline the meetings that you are invited to because they distract you a lot from the main coding work. So I would say if you are having too many meetings, I
Hmm.
don't think you will be able to focus. That's just
Right.
my opinion. I mean,
No, I mean I agree to that point also, because in the end you get like only little bit of time to code when you're like engaged with so many meetings. Maybe managers can do something about it.
yeah,
And yeah, staying late at night is not like good for a long term, but I guess
yeah,
some people are really
some
night
people are
owls.
doing it. Yeah, developers are open about if they are facing issues while attending meetings at a certain time or a certain amount of
Hmm.
hours, and if they are open about it, then I think it will be easier for the management
Hmm.
to plan everything accordingly. So it's a
Hmm.
message to all the developers: if you are frustrated with the meetings, speak up. That will
Hmm.
help.
Okay. Next question. Name three subscriptions that you cannot live without as a coder.
Okay, that's a good thing. I think YouTube Premium is one. I do not want ads while I'm trying to code my
Trying to
API.
learn code
Yeah,
and stuff.
so YouTube Premium is good and it's very underrated. People say that you don't, if you have to listen to music, just get YouTube Premium and there will be no ads.
Hmm.
No, for us coders, YouTube is
Hmm.
like a a pool of an ocean of knowledge. So I think that's one subscription.
Hmm.
Second is it depends on what GPT tool you are using. So like
Hmm.
for example, me right now I'm using GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT. So GitHub
Hmm.
Copilot I'm using the free version, ChatGPT I'm using the paid version, and
Hmm.
I'm using it because I want to learn more about overall web development. So I think
Right.
ChatGPT helps me with that,
Hmm.
and I think I will keep it for a little longer.
Hmm.
And I think I would like, not future, I would like to subscribe to a Medium or dev.to because they have very good blogs, and I think it's
Hmm.
only fair to
Right.
give back to the community.
Right. Cool. Good to know. Books, podcasts, blogs. What's your number one way to learn fast?
Blogs.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
after this podcast, I think I would say podcasts, but yeah, I think blogs are the ones that I prefer.
Yeah. I sometimes feel you can read things faster than watching a video.
That's true.
So yeah, that's good one. Then last question. Standing desk, stretches or something else. What's your health trick while working?
I would say it depends usually. So I cannot sit
Hmm.
for 9 hours. I cannot stand for 9 hours. And
Hmm.
sometimes I just put my laptop on my belly and I code like this. So, so it depends. But yeah, I think sometimes when I'm on a video call, I tend
Hmm.
to sit and be relaxed,
Hmm.
in a relaxed nature and working on the other things as well.
Hmm.
Sometimes when I am coding, then I'm sitting. Sometimes I'm standing. Sometimes I'm on a
Right.
different table.
Hmm.
So it varies. It's not
Okay.
fixed.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I feel like it's an essential thing because when you're starting as a developer, then you're like sitting and then your neck is strained, your body is strained, back pain, that pain.
Yeah, that's
So,
a very important thing that I think I'm still trying to figure out how to, you know,
hmm.
get a hold of that because every time if you sit for long hours, like
Hmm.
2 hours or 3 hours on,
Right.
and the coding job is like until the bug is resolved, you will not be able to,
Yeah.
get away from the screen, and
Hmm.
that is very, it's not healthy. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm still trying to figure out. So I mean, maybe some people can put down some comments, some yoga exercises
Yeah,
that
of
we can
course.
do within offices or
Hmm.
something that just stretching, so it will be of great help.
Definitely. Yeah. People can just go to the comment and
Yes,
comment
please do,
on
guys, please
one
do.
one health strategy that you maintain. I invested in standing this. It is a good investment. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
you
nice.
can switch between that. Good. So I guess that was the end of rapid fire round. So we have one last round. It's a closing round. So I have two questions here. So the first question, what's the one challenge you dare every listener to attempt this week to 10x their growth as a web developer?
Recommend, which is if you want to increase your knowledge, build a
Mhm.
real world project. And when I
Okay.
say whether for
Okay.
real, the
Mhm.
key is to understand what the functionality
Mhm.
and how it works. Like for me, I
Okay.
can design front end,
Mhm.
and I can copy the front end of a given structure or design,
Mhm.
but the functionality which happens at the back end is difficult for
Mhm.
me to understand. So I
Mhm.
think if you want to increase your productivity, just build a real world app and deploy it.
Yeah.
Nobody cares,
Mhm.
man. There are millions of developers
Mhm.
out there. If you
Mhm.
deploy, there will be one or two people who are criticizing your app, but
Mhm.
I think that will help you more
Mhm.
as compared to just not doing anything. So I would say, yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. So should they do it with AI or without any help from AI?
See, I am fairly new to AI, so
Mhm.
I would say the best approach is to not use AI and build something of
Mhm.
your own, which I am doing by myself, and I
Mhm.
would say I would recommend other people to do it as well.
Okay.
And if they can use AI, then I think it's good enough. But yeah,
Mhm.
the the main focus, the main aim is to
Mhm.
strengthen our fundamentals,
Mhm.
and if we do that, then I think any way is fine. So yeah.
Okay, that's a good challenge. Build an app without taking any help. All right, last question. Complete this. Okay, it's like a fill in the blanks. So the statement goes like this. If I were starting today, I would ignore dash and master dash first.
Okay, so I think I will relate it to my
Mhm.
experience. If I was starting today, I would ignore React and learn
Mhm.
JavaScript first,
Okay.
because it's important. If I'm starting as a front end developer, I
Mhm.
must understand JavaScript. And I think
Okay.
the good companies dwell more on JavaScript from my
Mhm.
personal experience. So I would say learn JavaScript first and then go to
Mhm.
React.
I can't agree more. That's a good advice. Everybody keeps saying the
I think
same. So,
I am also trying to follow this same. I mean I have been working for React for so
mhm.
long, and then I sometimes I mess up with the JavaScript fundamentals, and then I
Mhm.
have to go back. So that
Mhm.
is one thing that I always. It's not like I know everything about JavaScript. If you ask me some questions, I might not be able to answer. But that's
Mhm.
the thing, right? You keep learning and you keep
Right.
doing it. So I think
Mhm.
I'm not here to motivate anyone. I'm just saying,
Mhm.
if you have to keep doing it, keep learning it every day.
I totally agree. Every front-end interview first starts with JavaScript. Only then they will go to the framework questions. So that itself tells like how important it is to know your fundamentals. Awesome. So that was end of all the rounds. It was a big interview. So thanks very much for your patience and sharing all your valuable insights. So where can people find you, Shlok, on the internet?
That is one of my favorite questions. So I am mostly available everywhere. Just type in Shlok Sri,
Okay.
SHLOKSRI. So on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, you go in/Shlok Sri. On X,
Mhm.
you can directly type Shlok Sri. On GitHub, it's the same Shlok Sri.
Mhm.
And again, on
Okay.
the Blue Sky app, you will say shlok.sri.bsky app.
Okay.
So
I'll
we can,
put in the show notes
yes,
and
please.
also on the screen later.
So it
Okay.
basically resonates with my experience. I'm highly accessible on the internet using my name.
Yeah, people should not get this wrong. There is another person with the same name, Shlok Srivastava.
Yes,
When you go on YouTube, it's very hard to find the web developer Shlok Srivastava. So, yeah, we will anyways link it in the show notes. So,
yes.
not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So, that was it.
Yep. And
Um,
Sachin, I would like to say thank you so much for having me here. And I am not the greatest developer and or not the most famous developer, and I'm still learning a lot of things. But
mhm,
doing this podcast with you and get to share my knowledge with you, it brings me joy. And to be very
mhm,
honest, people like me, developers like me, we are
mhm.
hungry for opportunities. And
Right.
I myself, I delivered a talk at a global conference, Front
Mhm,
End Nation 2025,
mhm,
where most of the developers were either from a big company or they are so
mhm,
passionate, like they were so good coders, or they were so much influencing people within the internet. So I was very proud, and I was very thankful that Front End
Mhm.
Nation gave me the chance to speak in front
Mhm.
of so many developers. So I think
Right.
for me this podcast is not about branding or showing off or anything. I am a very
Mhm.
average developer, and I am still
Mhm.
learning day by day. It's just
Mhm.
that people like me, or developers like me who are out there, I think
Mhm.
we try our best, and we
Mhm.
try to learn from everyone, or
Mhm.
we share our knowledge, and that's because we want to learn and we want to grow more. So I think
Right.
I personally feel like coming here was a very good decision, because I
Mhm.
just wanted to touch base with the community, and
Mhm.
I would say that I keep learning, so I motivate other
Mhm.
developers to that, to that they should also keep learning and
Mhm.
share their knowledge, because that's how we grow. I mean,
Totally.
it's very much important. So yeah, thanks for having me, Sachin.
Sure, sure. It was also my pleasure to interview you. Sharing all these valuable insights, knowledge from a senior developer like you. It is definitely going to reach one or the other developer.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, that was such an insightful conversation with Shlok. I hope you picked up a ton of value, whether you're just starting out or already on your way to becoming a senior web developer. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with a fellow developer, and drop a comment about the favorite section or the favorite question you like the most, or any other question that you think should be included in the show. It helps more than you know. And as always, keep building, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Web Stories with Sachin.